Welcome to this episode of ISV Talks. I'm Carol Livingston from Dynamics Connections and your host of ISV Talks. And on this episode, I have Dave Novak, who's the president of Accountable Software. Welcome, Dave.
Thank you, Carol. Good morning.
Do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how long you've been with Accountable and how you came to join Accountable?
Sure. So I've been with Accountable since 1998. I started as an employee in development and support. I came to the company as a customer of Great Plains and a customer of Accountable Software. And I had developed an internal solution for replacing Report Writer with Crystal Reports. We were doing some things that Report Writer couldn't do. The company was very heavily based on barcoding. We used that for all of the inventory tracking and also picking and packing of orders. And that's just something we couldn't do with Report Writer. So I integrated using VBA, and then Accountable Software picked that up and asked me to come and develop that solution for them using Dexterity. So I moved to Accountable. I learned the Dexterity programming language. I went away to the camp they used to have, and here we are. So in 2004, I bought the company with two partners, and then in 2007 we changed that to just two partners, and that's what we are today. So it's been a long time at Accountable and a long time developing Forms Printer.
Great. So how did the company get started? So you kind of talked about how you ended up joining, but a little bit about the company history.
So the company was founded by David Hammerstad, who was a Dexterity developer, and he worked for a partner and he did a lot of custom development. And then he decided to go out on his own and just develop products. And so that's what he was doing at the time. And then he was hired on to help with the migration of the company that I worked for, which was Premier Dental. And they were moving to, I think, GP312 at the time from an older system. And so he founded the company based on the work that he had done at Premier and also at his wife's company. In fact, he had done some customizations there, and he productized those and founded Accountable Software. Yeah, it is a really interesting and very historically tied to GP. He also had the contract to write the Smart List, which in those days was Explorer for Great Plains, became Smart List later on. And then when I came on board, that was right at the time that we added the advanced lookup windows that everyone knows now today as just sort of part of the product, just like Explorer or Smart List is. But at the time, it was the older style windows. Sometimes you see them. I still see them today. Some people have the newer style turned off, but that was a big project for us to replace every one of those windows throughout the product. And I still remember it was a highlight of kind of my development career when we went to Stampede and to see the Great Plains crew demoing our windows from the main stage as a part of the OEM product of Smart List. It was really a good feeling.
Yeah, and Smart List is a really popular feature of Dynamics GP. A lot of users love that. I did when I was a customer. And just kind of speaking about that, it sounds like, and this is kind of the story of a lot of ISVs, is that they do come from solving a particular customer need, right? They needed to replace Report Writer with something better, and you developed that. And kind of this sounds like that's the story, how that all came about with Accountable Software too.
Yes, definitely. It was completely developed from the products that came from solving customers' needs, for sure.
Mm-hmm. So what are the companion products that you sell today for Dynamics?
So our GP add-ins are Forms Printer, and that's our flagship product, we would call that. And we talk about it in terms of the family of products of Forms Printer, because there's the Forms Printer base system, which is an integration to the core functionality of Great Plains, sales order processing, RM for statements and transactions, EFT remittance, payables, remittances. And so there's the base there, and then there's an add-in for project accounting that allows you to use the functionality of Forms Printer for all the project invoices. And then we have Plus that we've added on in more recent years, which is a a looser integration to allow you to connect reports to any window in Great Plains and run reports from any window. And then the most recent add-on as part of the family of products is the GP email replacer, which is an integration that just lets you replace the functionality of Great Plains emailing with ours. It's an integration to Outlook or EWS or SMTP for emailing, and it gets around all those problems that people are having that aren't upgrading or can't upgrade to the latest version, where the multi-factor authentication is causing them not to be able to email anymore. GP email replacer is a solution for that. And so that's the FormSprinter family of products. We also have Zip Assist, which is an address verification software that anywhere in Great Plains that you would do a point of address entry, the product is integrated there, and it will automatically update email addresses, format them the way that the Postal Service wants them to be formatted, add the +4, the zip code if you want it to, and then saves that address that way. And there's also a built-in process for running over all your addresses. Every 2 months, we get a new database from the Postal Service. It's amazing that 100,000 addresses every 2 months change in the United States. So the address database stays current, and then you can run that against your existing addresses and keep everything current. And that's a really valuable tool for people that mail or ship packages where there's a cost to, incorrect addresses.
Right?
It's a great way to keep things updated. And then we have our BI reporting product, which is pretty self-explanatory. It's BI for an integration to Excel, where instead of pushing data out of something like SmartList and exporting static data, BI reporting is inside of Excel, live data, ad hoc querying, and then you can save the contents, save your spreadsheets, and refresh the data anytime that you come back. And there's a web element to it as well for ad hoc querying on the web. If you have customers that need a kind of a customer portal, the access to view their data, or vendors or outside salespeople, any people outside the organization over the web that need just an ad hoc query tool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the creators of SmartList create something even better, it sounds like.
Yeah, that was how it began. It used to be AnyView Creator and Browser. We built the tool, the original tool for SmartList. After SmartList was designed, we created Creator that lets you build your own new SmartList. And then we took that whole concept of SmartList and put it on the web in AnyView Browser, and that migrated into the BI reporting product that we have today.
Gotcha. And so, and it sounds like your products are really not industry specific. They're pretty much for any GP user or customer.
Yes. Yep. All of our products are very horizontal, we would say, and we have a broad range of customers in all kinds of industries.
So let's kind of talk about, changes you've seen in the channel in the last couple of years or past few years. What trends are you seeing?
Well, I think one of the big things that we see is a migration over to electronic communication. That, believe it or not, still every week we are contacted by partners that say, my customer's ready to get into emailing their documents, whether it's invoices or purchase orders or EFT remittances. That's been very, very big lately. We get every week we're contacted by a partner looking to do EFT remittances. And so part of it was the pandemic. Of course, there was a huge push during that time when people found out printing to a printer at my office doesn't do me any good when I'm working at home and I can't print at home. So what do I do? And we helped dozens and dozens of partners and customers get set up with emailing capability during that time. And now the trend just seems to be continuing, I think, because people are seeing the value of it. They're trying to do more with less. We always hear that. They want to streamline their processes because people just don't have the time to do it the way they used to. And so we hear that a lot, that we want to start emailing, we want to start streamlining.
Yeah, and FormSprinter, that remind me again, it works with which modules in GP?
So it's integrated to the sales order processing module, the PM module, the POP module, RM for statements and receivables transactions, and then the payroll and payables checks as well. and then project.
Yeah, and the AP checks too, I think you said, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You also, yeah. So, what challenges do you think partners and customers are trying to solve? I mean, I think you kind of already touched on it here, but what operational challenges are you seeing from the channel?
So, I guess currently the biggest thing is dealing with the multi-factor authentication changes and how that's affecting the way they send emails out of Great Plains. All of the challenges around security and emailing and how Great Plains interacts with your network and your Office 365 system. And so that's been the single biggest thing that's the focus for us, and support certainly is helping partners get Forms Printer set up so that it works in that environment and helps them not only with emailing, but also Forms Printer has the ability to export to file as well, and PDF format is most typical today. And so you can archive, as a document archiving mechanism as well.
Yeah, and so printing it out and storing it in cabinets or boxes. Yeah, that's a great
Yeah.
idea. So I know there's some advanced features that Forms Printer has.
Forms Printer is, it started out as a tool for the end user, and it's evolved into a tool for the advanced user and the partner as well. They allow the partners to help their customers solve bigger and more complex problems. One of my favorite features is the pre and post processor that we built into the statement printing and also into sales order processing. That came about from a customer need, that they had a situation where they could not filter out the right list of customers just using the Great Plains statement printing window. They had their own rules that they needed to apply. And so we wrote the pre-processor that allows us to go through as Forms Printer is iterating over which statement should go, and it reads its custom script that was written with our help and the partner and the customer all involved, and we got their business rules written into that script. And so it identifies which customers should and shouldn't be included in that statement run based on their rules. And so it allows them to have that custom process for statement emailing. It saves them a lot of time, rather than they were
Yeah.
literally having to filter through manually thousands of statements a month. And now we've cut that down to half, because about half of the customers shouldn't even be receiving the emails. And so they're really happy with that process and what Forms Printer was able to do. So that's one of the advanced features, the pre and post processor. There's also all of the functionality around scripting, what we call scripting, being able to decide which email should be the mail from. So if I don't want it to come from me personally, I want it to come from sales, or maybe I have multiple, you and I talked before about multi-entity management. If I have multiple entities and I have some customers should receive an email from one email address versus another, because of that, that's something you could script
Mhm.
in to Forms Printer. You can script the subject and the email body. That, I think, is really well demonstrated by a customer of ours that has business rules that they need to apply to the emailing when there is a certain timeline to the document being sent, whether it's the payment is on time or late or really late, and they can use custom business rules to define the subject and the body of the email based on the date
Mhm.
of the invoice and today's date and what message they want to provide in that. So the customization of Forms Printer through all these advanced features, and there's many more, lots of advanced features that Forms Printer has.
Yeah, and so it gives you a lot more flexibility too, right? If you have lots of different formats of invoices and a lot of different companies, yeah, you only have a limited number of forms out of the box, GP. So,
Yeah, and that's something that we run into quite a bit, is people looking for, can I add more setups? And what we often do is actually, rather than adding more setups, which is an option, and you can set up based on customer class, you can set up based on individual customers if you need to. But the other thing that Forms Printer does, because of the power of the tools that we're integrated with, Crystal Reports and SQL Server reporting services, and then all of the scripting and all the other functionality, the advanced features, a lot of times we can solve it with one report and one setup and everything else calculated, so that you don't have to maintain multiple reports. You don't have to maintain a lot of different setup.
Yeah.
You can just do it with one, and that's a big help, and a lot of streamlines a lot of things for people that way.
So a lot of options when you have different variations. So yeah, that's great. Maybe talk about, a customer or use case where you've helped a customer with the product and why they were successful with that product.
So I guess I kind of touched on the one that always comes to mind, which is the customer that had the preprocessor. But the other one that I always think of is we were approached at Convergence a few years back by a partner looking to help their customer streamline their processes. And when we dug into what they were currently doing, we discovered that their current invoicing process was taking 2 days, which seemed unfathomable at the time until we dug into what their process was. And turned out they were using Great Plains and Report Writer to print documents physically on paper and then scanning them back in to get a PDF, and then marrying that individual PDF up to a manually created email and then sending it out. And that process took them several days to do. And so we were able to take that 2-day process down to a 15-minute process using Forms Printer, using the built-in PDF export functionality, and then the automatic emailing of Forms Printer setup.
That's huge. Well, so what are some of the new things you're looking to introduce to help customers add value or become more efficient?
So we're always pushing to make sure that Forms Printer works wherever Great Plains does, to make sure Forms Printer is integrated as tightly as we can to the processes of Great Plains. The GP email replacer was part of that, looking to be able to give email functionality without having to move to SSRS or Crystal, because that was something we had heard many times from partners. We love Forms Printer's emailing capability. We're not ready to replace our Word docs or our Report Writer reports with Crystal or SSRS. We don't have the expertise for that. And so the GP email replacer, I think, is a great answer to that.
Or keep their setup, right?
Yeah. So the GP email replacer, I like to tout it as the 2-button setup. I mean, literally, you install Forms Printer, you go in, you make one checkbox setting and one drop-down list setting in the Great Plains system preferences window, and nothing else changes. All of your existing email functionality starts working again in the versions of Great Plains that are affected by the multi-factor. We try to make sure that Forms Printer is as seamless as possible. We almost don't want the customers to know that it's there. We want your experience to be use of Great Plains and everything functions, as expected, without Forms Printer being an interference or a hindrance in any way. To enhance your experience is what used to be the tagline of accountable software, enhancing the experience.
Yeah.
The tight integration of Forms Printer is where we think one of the single biggest advantages of the product are.
Yeah, I agree.
I think some of the things that we see happening are the customers moving off of Great Plains, and the reasons why we try to get that feedback from partners when we see customers moving off. And of course, there's the people moving to Business Central. But the other trend that we seem to see right now is people moving off of the Microsoft platform, it seems. And those tend to be the customers that didn't stay current. When we look at their account in our system, we see that they are still running a GP 2016 or sometimes even earlier version, and they tend to be some of the customers that don't migrate to the newest versions of Great Plains. We're seeing a lot of customers embracing emailing, which it seems in this day and age odd to say, but we still every week are approached by customers wanting to integrate emailing into their process,
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we're finding the effects of the multi-factor authentication changes in Great Plains and their version not supporting those changes. That's definitely something we're seeing quite a bit of. That's what led to the GP email replacer functionality. But just in Forms Printer overall, because the partner base knows what Forms Printer can do in terms of delivery of documents, emailing of documents. And so we see that quite frequently. It's still looking to streamline process and incorporate emailing. We have customers that look to Forms Printer to streamline their whole process of invoice delivery. Like I mentioned before, the archiving, to be able to maintain an electronic copy of the document, along with making sure that the process of sending out invoices is just a much quicker, smoother process that one person can do. And then across the board, I keep talking about invoicing, but really, across the board, the EFT remittances has become a very
Oh,
important process for people to streamline,
mm-hmm.
to be able to do electronically, to send
Right.
out those remittances.
Okay. So thanks, Dave, for joining today.
Well, thank you, Carol. Thanks for hosting. This has been great. And I hope the Dynamics community gets something out of it. And if you have a challenge that you're looking for a solution, we'd be glad to talk to you about it. We love finding ways to make Forms Printer address different problems that you might run into. You see my email address. I'd love to hear from you and discuss any projects that you have coming up.
Dave's email is dnovak@accountable.com. So thank you,
Yep.
Dave. We'll talk to you guys next time on the next episode of ISV Talks. Thanks, friends. I'll see you
Bye,
soon.
everyone. Thank
Bye
you.
bye.